everyone, and welcome to another episode of Shine from the Inside's podcast. I'm Jennifer Collington, and I typically do these videos to educate people on certain topics. Today is one that is probably my all-time favorite topic, which is intention speaking. The reason why this matters is because it actually shapes the entire world that we're in. One of the reasons that we've been taught not to really pay attention to what we speak and the intention behind it is because of the lack of power that we have when we don't pay attention to it. What we need to really be focusing on is, I mentioned in my prior video, it's called something like script writing. And pretty much you want to write your script and then the world kind of performs based off of this script. So a long time ago, people set in motion about what this world needed to look like and told us how we needed to be, how we needed to act, and everything outside of that was wrong. Part of the problem with that is nobody really knew otherwise. And so most of our world, most of this system that has been built, most of the way everybody feels, the way people talk about themselves, all of this has been generated for you. All of this has been pre-scripted for you. The whole part about what's been happening over these past hundreds of years is humanity slowly waking up that this was a lie placed on us and how we are not any of these things and this world doesn't need to be anything like this. And now it's February 9th, 2026. Now we see a lot of truth coming out in the world. We see a lot of things that we always, especially conspiracy theorists, knew was happening. And a lot of the reason why we knew it was important to stop speaking into the lies. One of the ways that you can start helping yourself immediately on your healing journey, immediately in your everyday life, immediately in every area of your life, is to watch how you talk to yourself, watch how you talk about your life. Back in the day, I used to call myself all kinds of things, and a lot of it was stuff that I was pre-taught to call myself. So I'm loud, I'm bossy, those kinds of things. There's lots, but it's so long ago, and I don't talk about myself like that anymore. But one of the biggest things is always every kind of problem that could be facing this other script, people are going to call you down upon. So I was always somebody that it didn't make sense to me, so I was asking questions. So then I am now difficult because I don't just understand and go along with it, right? And I'm too eccentric and different, and I'm not thinking the way others do, so there must be something wrong with me, instead of just, why is she thinking that way? Maybe there's something to see there. And bossy, I didn't want to go along with what everyone else was saying when the world seemed shit and it didn't make sense. So yeah, maybe I'm bossy to you because I wasn't going to let you dictate what was happening for me, right? And so anybody can turn anything into a negative about you. The good thing is that if you have self-awareness, which I was talking about in my last video, it does help you to have like a shield, like an armor, to be like, you can call me whatever you want. I already know my truth, so whatever you have to say, you're not really changing anything about me, okay? So intention speaking is important because everything that we say, think of it as like a spell. One of my favorite sayings is words are spells, like you are casting as you're speaking. A lot of us don't know how good of creators we are because we don't know, we don't watch what comes out of our mouth and the things that we agree with, right? So if we are not aware of that, we're not aware that we are part of what's creating this society and this world as it is, right? If we are constantly saying that this world is a prison, this world sucks, this world is nothing but abuse, this world is nothing but terrible people, we're creating a world that has those things. I'm not saying it's on you. I'm just saying we're not being part of the change, because then the world is going to show us what we're saying. We are creating more of that because we're speaking into the problems. We're speaking into the lower energies. And when we speak into things, think of it as you're giving it power. So one of the best things, even if something's negative happening, I still don't say that, don't talk about it, because that is bypassing what is honest. So authenticity is the most important thing. When you're feeling something, to call it out honestly is true. but in a way that still retains your power. So if something is terrible, like what's happening out there right now. So like, it's terrible to see that the Epstein files and how people treated people for eons is like in our face. But it's also beautiful to see that humanity has this opportunity now to wake up to it. Sure, we could be focused on the terrible stuff, but there is this whole other side. And that's one of the importance about these videos, why it's needing to come out right now, is I need us to all start speaking life into this world that we want to create. We need to stop speaking life into this black pit of doom that is not helping us grow, that is not helping us go towards the direction that we want to see, that is only creating more of what we already are seeing. Technically, we do want it to go into the black void, and then we want something else to be rebirthed from that. We now see actively what kind of world we do not want to live in, what we do not want to be a part of. So it's really easy to start speaking intentions to the opposite, right? So when I first started my healing journey, it was really easy for me to beat myself up, because that's what we're programmed to do, is immediately shame and guilt ourselves. So one of the first things I had to start doing was to stop the train thought in the middle of the process. So when you hear somebody calling you down, or when you are calling yourself down, it's important to be like, well, maybe that's not the best way to look at the situation. Like if you did something stupid, you're not stupid. Like we could be like, I'm stupid. The truth of the matter is that, oh, that was something silly. I tried it. It didn't work, obviously. I'm not going to do that again. But I love that I tried. I love that I'm the kind of person that even when things don't work out, I try and I learn new skills all the time, and I'm constantly growing and experiencing something. So even when you have a negative thing, it's really important to use that gratitude that you have and to flip that idea of what you're talking about, because yes, I'm sure there is a negative aspect that you could focus on. There always is. The point is there is a much bigger thing happening usually at the same time, and it's important for us to pay attention to those things, because that's where the growth, the seed, the nurturing comes, right? The other stuff, the shame and the guilt, it was a tool used so that you don't use these other sides. You don't go towards this thinking, because that's where the power is. That's where they are, right? That's how they're speaking. They are speaking with intention. So when they are saying terrible stuff, believe what they have to say. Those really foul people out there, there's a reason they're speaking that into existence. Don't be part of that. We are above that now. That's part of why this is going the way that it is because so much of humanity sees that this is wrong. And it's time for us to start speaking what is right into existence. So we're building the world up every time we speak now. Every time we're with our group of friends, anytime we're with our family, anytime we're alone with ourselves, we are able to create a new world that we want to be in by how we either act or speak in it, but especially how we speak. If you say that you constantly only have problems with your family, you're going to create more problems with your family. In my other video, I was talking about self-fulfilling prophecies. I do understand there are some family dynamics that are going to be like that, but I do understand that when I was a kid, I had a perception that my family sucked and I couldn't go to them. So guess what I never did? I never went to them. I never used them to help me or grow. And then towards a part of my healing journey, I realized that my family was not given certain functionality in the same capacity as me for a reason. I was somebody supposed to help them learn that. And it is how that is. People just assume that the parents are always the teachers. And a lot of the time, your kids are going to teach you something new. Your kids are going to be what's inviting a new energy in because they come from you in an advanced state. So they know all about who you are already, and they're now being injected into a world that's further along than you were. So they do see things slightly different, which is one of the reasons kids are the most valuable source for true, authentic communication and visionaries. So I do understand that not all families are going to support you, and that's not going to change versus what you're saying, but it is going to change how you deal with it. Even though my family directly maybe has a different view of what society is, maybe they completely don't agree with you at all, right? That is okay, and it doesn't have to mean anything about me, right? And that's on them to decide that. But I still am safe in myself in expressing my true self with them, regardless if they agree with me or not. Because I know in my heart this is what is right. And even if, however it turns out, that's on them. It's not on me for being honest about it and calling out terribleness. So even when you have a family, for my family, I later on down my healing journey, I realized like it was a lot of how I believed my family, how I assumed, was the same way that people and they assumed about me. And I learned that everybody is innocent as children, and we're all adult children, okay? So when you start thinking and talking about other people, you need to think about them as like a little child. Would I want to say that to a little kid? And most of the time we don't want to. That's what made me stop speaking to myself the way that I did, is I wouldn't talk to a child like that. I wouldn't treat a kid like that. If you would, this may not help you, but maybe it's because you're not thinking that people, when you were a kid, talked to you terribly, which makes it feel like you should talk to other people terribly. But inside, you always knew that felt terrible, right? So the best part about intention speaking is to start with your inner child, because oftentimes it is our family, that something happened there. And not always is it the family's fault. Sometimes it is just an outside factor when you were a child, but usually something in our childhood. There is a little hurt wound in there about that, right? And so for my family, it was about talking too much. Meanwhile, now as I grew up, I find that I'm supposed to be a public speaker of sorts, right? Like that's something I'm naturally drawn to. And yet, because I was shamed at a young age, it was something that was the hardest for me to come up about. But for a long time, how I spoke about myself, well, I'm not good at public speaking. It always makes me nervous. I'm not going to really ever want to do that. I'm terrible at it. Why would I even try? And when we speak like that, that is exactly what they want us to do, because before we even try, before we even know, we've made up this assumption because we haven't even tested these skills. Just assume. And a lot of the time it's based off of like this fear or this uncomfortability. Meanwhile, our body oftentimes gives us those emotions and those feelings when we're about to do something incredibly important, when it is something that is uncomfortable because it is going to push us to that next level, and yet is so valid and needed right now. So just because you feel that, it isn't a problem. And it's important to remind yourself that uncomfortability is just a lack of familiarity. It's not danger immediately. And that's part of why our world is the way that it is because they never wanted us to go outside the box. They never really wanted us to know that we could do more than what we thought we could do. And so this limited script writing was on purpose so that we don't try new things, which is one of the reasons reprogramming your mind to speak with intention now is one of the most valuable things that we could even start doing, because long before the actions show up in our world, we have to create them through the script. We have to direct what's going to happen next. The more of us that come online and speak this new script into existence, the faster that world can birth, because not only do we all then have direction, speaking with intention all of a sudden limits what doesn't matter and focuses you back on what does. It also helps add that clarity because you've removed stuff, but it gives us direction in knowing this is probably the next step I need to do, right? So it's important when we are speaking with intention because it is genuinely creating the world around us. And when we're doing that, we're not realizing the most valuable part we play is just in how we are seeing and choosing to see the world. And part of that comes from how we see ourselves. So when you start speaking about to yourself without these limited versions of you and truly opening up to your unlimited possibilities and potential, it changes everything around you. It gives you the most ultimate free version of life, letting you live in heaven on earth, realizing that you are always a divine being that could do all of this stuff. The only thing that changed that view was what we've started speaking and thinking about ourselves in this world. And largely they wanted us to do that so that we would speak intention to downward slope this world to prevent it ever ascending to the higher consciousness, because they cannot control us in the higher consciousness like they can in the lower consciousness, okay? So these intentions are very important, and one of the reasons that you need to start nurturing yourself this way is because you become this beacon of light and higher consciousness, the more you open yourself up to that, okay? The things that we could do, some of the ways that I've worded some things down to help picture what we're thinking about. So if anybody's watched Star Trek, you know how they go into that room, that's like their playroom, their VR room, and they put in all these little margins and then it generates it. That's what you're doing. You're going in, whenever you're setting these intentions, you're going in and you're pretty much creating this world that's going to dictate how you're moving forward and what you're going to see. So it's important to think of it like that. Some of the ways that you can look into how words are spells is, they said that it wasn't true. I posted it back and I got fact checked and they said that that was a lie, but I know for a fact that it's not. So one of the studies they did was on water and how different waters have different crystalline structures to them based off the emotion that they're in, right? So when you're speaking from a terrible place and you're crying, you can see that those tears hold that in it, that energy in it. So it's the same as when we speak into, say, have you ever seen, if you've ever seen the rice jars examples, okay? So there's a jar of rice. They're both made from the same vat. You split it into two. One you tell it only terrible stuff and one you say only nice things to. The jar that you're speaking terrible in is going to rot very quickly. The jar that you didn't is going to grow. It's going to look normal for a long time. Eventually the rice is not going to stay well. But the point is, negative words and intentions will deteriorate you 10 times faster than positive affirmations, even in a terrible situation. Okay? So even though there is bad stuff happening, even though things are going on, that does not negate how important it is to reframe your way of speaking about the situation, because you are constantly always like that thing of rice. You're either going to teach yourself to mold or you're going to teach yourself to thrive in these conditions, okay? But why it's important is because you do see then, even our emotions, as we're crying, what comes out of us, it does hold energy. If you speak to your water around you, it's collecting that energy. So if you're speaking only negative, if you're in a negative environment, you're drinking in that negative stuff. Those words are soaking into your pores, okay? So if you're not doing your due diligence to protect yourself from these things, you're not speaking enough positive into you, all this negative stuff eventually is going to start rotting you instead of helping you, right? So one of the things people do a lot, they speak to their water with these intentions. So sometimes you can write a list of intentions down on a piece of paper, put it under your water overnight, and drink the water in the morning because it can absorb that energy into it. I know it all sounds magical, but guess what? We actually do live in a magical realm. This is all powerful. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know how much magic is here, because guess what? Then they're not in power. They don't control the magical realms the way that we can naturally. The only reason that they've controlled us is so that we don't use it at all, or use it in a way that suits their purposes, because they want us to help them create the terrible life that we have been pretty much brought into. So we need to start thinking of it as like, when we say our thoughts or anything like that, we are shifting reality around us consistently. And so if we don't like the display, which majority of us don't like the display right now, we need to change the variables, tweak our settings, and push that different reality into existence. But we can only do that if we tweak the settings. And right now they want us to feel like we can't even do that. We are the settings. We as people are the settings. We control what this looks like based off our choosing to participate in it or choosing to not. The fact that these files came out and people are still participating in everyday life knowing it's all a sham is insane. That's even more of a... Sometimes we didn't know what was worse, knowing that the world knew, like we knew and the world didn't. And now we know that the world does know and still doesn't care. That almost seems worse to me than the world not knowing. Because at least before we're like, if they only understood and if they only seen, if they only knew this was true, it would change things. And now we're seeing it's not that. So we know that we need to help people in their mind. We need to change things in their mind. And Anybody who's been through the healing journey knows change is not quick. So expecting people who are indoctrinated into these cult-like followings, which, like it or not, a lot of these followings, if you actually were to go study cults, that's exactly how cults treat people. And it's one of the reasons is because of how it limits their power and puts the hands in somebody else's, and they don't question that. So when you have somebody that doesn't question and doesn't even want to think about anything besides what they've been told, it's going to take a long time for them to even understand. They have to start seeing little things in what's happening around them. And then guess what? Once they start, those little holes, they do build, right? They do start fracturing somebody's way of thinking, and then they are ready to come forward for what you've been trying to speak to them on. But don't stop trying to speak to them, because in different stages of growth, you speaking those intentions of growth into them, they will. You are planting seeds. These will grow. Maybe not as soon as we want, but they will grow. And the people who want to stay on that side of disempowerment, there's nothing we can do about that technically. And that's okay. Our choice is not to change what does not want to be changed. Our choice, our efforts, our intention speaking is to change whatever is supposed to be changed, whatever is here of love and light that wants to ascend and grow into the true capacity of what we can as human beings, but also as divine beings here. That's who we're trying to help. That's who matters. Not saying that the others don't, but they're making their choice to describe and script what matters to them. And as sad as it is, we only control part of the script. That's why one of the most important things we can do is all collectively start working on building a new script, because the more of us that have power here, even if there's a few stragglers over here that don't understand, they still are not as powerful as we will be. Like that scene from the Ant movie, Bug's Life, the Ant movie, A Bug's Life, when they all stand up and they realize that there's not that many grasshoppers compared to ants. And it's like that all over the world. There are so many of us, and there's so many opportunities for us to do things that, yeah, maybe there's going to be a few that won't. It does not matter, because there will be far more of us that are going to. So don't try, but still don't believe that your words mean nothing, because you are intention speaking, aren't you? So you know that all of your words, everything that you put out there, every little nugget, it is going towards something healing. It is going to be beneficial, even if that benefit is a long-term grow. I like to think of things in terms of, because I really like gardening and nature. So some things you plant and they're very quick, right? Like a seasonal thing. So tomato plant, yeah, it's quick and it'll blossom and you'll get a nice result from a nice harvest from that. But it dies that year, right? And right now we really want to plant tree people, fruit trees to be specific, because trees take a really long time to build, but they're stable. And then they start giving forever, right? So they reseed themselves, but also they have fruit, so they nourish themselves. So trees are not a seasonal thing. They're a generational thing. They take generations. So we don't need people going after these easy things that literally mean nothing anymore. We need people who really want substantial, true growth that's going to be here for generations to come, because what's going to matter is those seeds, those fruit that's coming off the trees. That's what matters for the next generation. So we know it's not just about our grow and what happens now. It's about what happens then. And right now, we need to change what's about to happen then, because it's going to be real. If we think it's bad now, it will be 10 times worse in the future if we don't do something now. And we know that. Why? It's one of the reasons why intention speaking right now is so important. We need to change what that energy is going to look like in the future before it isn't one that we can really change. And by that, I mean, they will enforce ways that we can stop doing these things. They will enforce ways that we don't have the ability to understand and to speak with each other about this, or write, or to feel emotions. They will inject us with stuff that removes our ability to utilize these things on purpose. On purpose, okay? So it's really important for us all to understand that there is nothing technically wrong with us, okay? But there is something wrong in the settings in which we decide to choose to move through our life. And some of them are predetermined. Some of them are ones that we have placed upon ourselves. But predetermined, I mean like societal or familial. So people have all already set that in motion for us. But it's interesting because I talked about it in my last video, and talking about how brains are plastic. So neuroplasticity is something that our brains are constantly doing. So our brain is like a big ball of clay. You can always remodel it at any time. So even people are sitting here being like, this is how I am, this is just how life is. Wrong. And that's what they want you to think, because they don't want you to know that you can sculpt yourself or your life at any moment. Because if you believe it's insculptable, you're not even going to try. And a lot of people, they're not going to try because they're like, well, I'll wreck it. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, maybe it needs to be smashed to fucking smithereens. And the reason I say that is because one of my least favorite things ever is what we call tower moments in healing. And they're usually treacherous, okay? And the reason they are treacherous is because they are supposed to dismantle anything that is not built to withstand. So they're going to cause chaos. They're going to cause destruction. Why? Well, because it's tearing away anything that is crap and does not need to stay. And so, yeah, it sucks to have these things come up. But also, the most beneficial we could have is these things come up, because then we're left with having to rebuild. So one of my example there is when it gets smashed to smithereens, sometimes that's devastating because it can't go back the way it was. But also, good thing, it can't go back the way that it was. So now it can be rebuilt as something different, rebuilt as something grander. So in my times when I've had to have like different versions of myself, so I say goodbye to old ones and welcome new ones, and in hurt and stuff like that, sometimes you get shattered so bad that the way that you put yourself back together will never be the same way that it was again. And you were smashed like that. Those pieces were so immensely shattered so that it could create this grand restructuring. When you have big lumps or just little cracks, you cannot remold that as well as you can dust or just completely tons of chunks. You get that many more chunks to do something with. So it's okay if certain things blast apart your world right now. It's okay if certain things blast apart who you are. We do need that shattering, because in that shattering, the light comes in, they say, right? It's a Rumi quote. And literally when we have these cracks open up, that's how we can see that I'm way more than this. So no wonder I can't go back in that old structure. I don't fit that place anymore. I was actually being bound, restrained. That's why that always felt terrible. So what we're doing now is freeing ourselves so that we can feel as great as we actually are supposed to. We can live in a beautiful, amazing heaven that we're supposed to. A long time ago, this was all set in motion so that we were never going to be able to operate and enjoy this realm as much as we were supposed to, because they wanted us to believe that we're constantly in hell trying to atone and make up to make it into heaven so that we'd be these good participants for the role that they set up. Meanwhile, it's always been rigged against us, you know? So it just takes effort. That's the most important part of this. Is like, it's not going to be an easy flip. You're not going to say intentions one day and all of a sudden life's going to be different. This is an everyday thing. In order for us to resculpt, it's going to be something that we are constantly having to put energy and effort into resculpting ourselves and the world to hold this new vision, right? Not just slightly better world that doesn't have pedophiles, you know, that doesn't have people doing terrible stuff. An actual world of what does better look like? You know, what does community look like? What does actually healthy eating look like? What does healthy communication look like? What does healthy family dynamics look like? What does, you know, providing shelter and food for our communities look like when we are not being driven by having to perform for survival anymore, when we actually are now setting the stage for people to thrive? What does that look like? So intention speaking is much more than just, oh, I'm beautiful. You know, right now we can use it for such a much bigger impact than ever before. But yeah, one of those things, I am beautiful. Those old societal standards, a lot of them, crap, so that we would all hate ourselves, so that we would never be speaking good about ourselves. And guess what? We're beautiful, amazing beings with our natural faces, with our natural voices, with our natural hair, with our natural bodies. We are beautiful beings. If anything, they've tried to make us look ugly and feel ugly so that we are ugly-ish, because they live off our life force the more and more they drain us. So yeah, they intentionally have done that to you. They intentionally made you feel that way. And now it's our turn to intentionally stop that. Right? To pull it back, to realize I am the power. You don't have it outside of me, actually. And it's only by that willful choice to allow them to take it that they have. And now we're saying, no, we have that boundary now. We have that self-awareness to be like, this actually isn't me. And this is what I'm going to now decide is me. This is what I'm going to decide is my reality now, what I want for my reality. And so part of what we do, so one of the things, these are certain tricks, is like knowing the power of your words. So affirmations, of course, is what I was just talking about, like I am beautiful, kind of stuff like that. But the point is that we're taking a positive intentional statement that help us reprogram our minds and align with our actions and goals. So they're a tool for focusing energy on what we want to manifest rather than the fear of it. So if you have a big day ahead of you, say you're going to do something like this, public speaking, you could get in your head about like, oh my God, it's terrible. But really you want to be like, I'm capable and resilient, because technically you're capable of delivering it and you're resilient. So even with whatever's going to happen, you can trust yourself to know that you're going to be able to handle it anyways, you know? And the point is that it creates a positive mindset to help you respond to challenges with confidence. It's not about to block out that you're never going to have anything come up or it's ever going to be easy. Nothing usually is that easy. The point is that you know that you can handle it no matter what. And that's the intention right there. Belief in yourself, trusting in yourself, reminding yourself of these skills and abilities so that when something does come up, it's not immediately like, oh, I'm terrible. It's like, oh, I know how to deal with this. You know, self-talk awareness. So I've talked about that in my prior videos. The first step to look at is, where are you talking crap about yourself and your life? Because you are actively then creating that more for yourself and your life. So watching how you talk about your ongoing dialogue in your mind or out and about, especially when you're highly emotionally triggered, because that is when we're most oftentimes going to react instead of respond. So a response is more of an affirmation. A react is usually more of an attack. So, like, I don't want to say like an attack in like an aggressive way, but into your system. So when you react, you've taken something in as a way that it is an offense, like it is something that you need to protect against. And oftentimes, it's even when we're judging people, is based off of a reactionary thing. And a lot of these reactions we've been taught to react with. Oh, that person did this to me. They must be a terrible person. Meanwhile, it's like, wow, that person might be having a terrible day, and coming near you and talking to you is like their way of smoothing it over, and you took it as a terrible thing, right? Like a lot of it is how we sculpt what we're saying and thinking about what's happening in the moment. And these reactions, they've imprinted in our brain for a moment, like for a reason. They've implemented this in our mind for a reason, okay? They want us to talk down about people because then we're not really helping ourselves, right? We're not really building up. We're keeping ourselves stuck in fear, which is largely what our society is driven by, is fear. But one of the last few things is intentional language, and then future focused speaking. So intentional language is usually choosing words that align with our highest values and desires. So you want to always be making sure when you're speaking, it is of the utmost highest value of what you want to say. You don't want, even if you do say something because you don't catch yourself, the best thing to be like, oh wait, I don't mean it like that, I meant it more like this, is to actually call yourself out on it, so that you do immediately go back into a more empowerment way of speaking rather than disempowering yourself. So it means avoiding negative and limiting phrases and using words that are positive, empowering, and goal-orientated. So instead of saying, I'm stressed about this project, you can be like, this project is challenging, but I know that I'm going to get better as I go through it, so I'm okay to this challenge, all right? Futures focused speaking is the one that I mostly am probably using all the time because I do know that words create actions, right? And so for me, future focused speaking is important because it is one of the ways that you can manifest the most intensely, is to speak as if it's already happened. So it's speaking through the outcomes you want and as if they're already on their way to you, and it's about declaring goals in the present tense as if they're already happened, which builds a mindset of expectation and confidence. A lot of the time people are waiting to see things happen for them to be like, oh, it finally is happening for me. Meanwhile, the whole point is for you to demand what that's going to look like, and then when it happens, be like, I knew this was going to happen because I told this was what was going to happen. Future focused speaking is incredibly important because even if our world seems bleak and gray right now, speaking, we know that our future is going to be brighter, that all this darkness right now is a way for the light to come out. And I'm so grateful to be living in a world that already is way more authentic and honest than it was before, and that more people are coming online to the true of our nature. Despite the past atrocities, they are able to see and harmonize now in a way that never was able to before because we didn't have that clarity before. And now with this clarity, I'm so grateful to see Earth moving in the direction of a utopia that I want to see, that I want for us to experience in my lifetime. And I'm so grateful to already be seeing that happening now. And usually I like to use the words now, no matter what it is, because you want it always to be now. Past tense is usually really important to hold into. And I usually confirm if it's a specific thing that I'm manifesting, not just speaking normally. Even sometimes when I'm speaking normally, if I say something and it is definitely a powerful affirmation, I'm going to call it in that moment like that and set that in stone. So sometimes if you don't finish things off properly, you're leaving it open. Okay, so you're manifesting and then you leave it open, and then something that you say after that might not be what you want to manifest or might not be the most beneficial, like that last sentence was, right? So for me, if I'm like, I'm so grateful and thankful that the world is creating utopia in my lifetime now and that I get to see and be a part of, and then it makes me feel so great and willing to put in the work needed to see that happen more and more as the years come on. I'm super grateful for that, and knowing that it's happening now for me, I accept and allow this to come into my experience now with open arms. As I will it now, so shall it be, or blessed be, amen. You could say a lot of different things. Close it off, because it's like putting a period on it and sending the letter away. You've now voiced it and you've released it with an open heart. And usually by proclamating something at the end of that, it's going to higher dimensional areas to be like, oh, I just got a request. This is the new request. This is what we're working on. In our realm, we have free will. So without us saying we're okay with them helping or giving these directives or narratives, a lot of higher dimensional beings cannot help us the same way. So by sometimes just us saying these statements out loud and ending them with closure, higher dimensional beings are like, oh great, I have a little thing to go do now because I was given the opportunity. So it's also important to always speak with intention, knowing that you're never alone, that you have many guides and different higher dimensional beings trying to always help you, and that they know that you have free will. And unlike any controlling people in this realm, they do not move unless you ask them to. So be open to them. Those are affirmations that you can say as well, that I'm open to my spirit guides around me that are here for unconditional love and light, that want to help usher in humanity. I give you full access to helping now in whatever ways that looks like, for the best of all. Thank you so much for making it true in this now and any other now and any other reality, helping us all be free. Thank you so much. And now so it is. Blessed be. Amen. But yeah, so let's see here if there's anything else I missed. So it is hard, I think, sometimes, because you do need to be honest with yourself without judgment as well, to see where you've been not really maybe speaking with intention, and seeing where you have been creating from a place that you didn't want. Like for a long time, not being specific in my intentions hurt as well, because sometimes when you ask for something, it'll give it to you in any way it can. Sometimes it's not the best way. Sometimes it hurts others in the process, right? And so with intention speaking, a lot of the ways that we've created our life, like, I don't know, being somebody that's like being bullied and wanting the bullying to stop, and then all of a sudden like breaking your leg so you can't go to school or something, like those kind of things. You are protected, yes, but there's something bad that had to happen to make that happen, right? Versus like, I'm going to stand up for myself against those bullies, So we are somebody that can create the outcomes that we maybe don't really like. And part of our role is how we've worded and spoken it out. And so it is important to see where you are part of that for yourself, not as blame, but because acknowledging that truth helps you relate to your own self and see your own biases and see how you've kind of created your own self-imposed jail on top of the jail that other people have created. This is a way for you to see where you speak harsher about yourself or have these limitations, or can potentially be blindsided by certain emotions and stuff like that to make you speak in a certain way that maybe isn't the best. But it's a way for you to truly see yourself in a light. Then you can remodel it. When you're only looking at part of the picture, you can't actually remodel the true depth of it, right? So when you're doing this all, compassion is really key, because what we uncover, it's not really to shame ourselves. It's to actually love and be there for ourselves more, to realize, this is something that I don't want to talk about myself like. This is something I don't want to treat the society like. So I'm going to change the words in order to associate to things, to create an awareness and to be more set in the tone and creation of what I actually want to see created in this life. So when we align with ourselves and our true heart center and speak what's truly in there in a way that is powerful with that intention behind it, the reality will shift to align with what we actually want. So I honestly think it is important. I will do another episode on script writing specifically, but for right now, this is pretty much what it is about. And intentions speaking is so important, because even when they are making food poisonous for us, if we speak intention over it, like bless our food, right? I say bless, but I do mean, even if you what I do is I like to reprogram my food for me. So whenever I buy food, whenever I'm about to eat it, it is like a blessing, but it's not the same prayer. I'm more like, thank you for this amazing nourishment and vitality and the money to be able to bring these nourishment to myself. I now remove any prior conditioning and prior negative energy, anything that this stuff was made, manufactured, or produced under that is not for the best of me or anybody that comes into contact with it. I now remove that. I now charge it up with good energy, vitality, revitalizing me in every cell in my body, helping my body to soak up every mineral and nourishment to it, and to be programmed with the most positive, loving energy now for all. And now so that is. And thank you so much for bringing me this nourishment. And I do that because a lot of what we are eating out there is not good for us. But when we actually change the programming of it, which we can do because everything's listening, everything's technically God, and that has forgotten it's God. So when you remind the food that it has a choice to not be what it's been conditioned to be either, it can now be reconditioned for you specifically. So if you need to eat something specifically for a specific reason, you can speak that intention into that food and be like, thank you for helping with this. I feel so great that you would help me with this, right? So like blessing your food or your drinks, anything like that, the water thing, that is another way of you can bless your water too. Everything is listening to you. So it is really nice when you start speaking with intention, because then you get this whole other relationship with everything around you. Such as like, oh, these are things and they're irrelevant. It's like, oh, these are living things listening to me, always with me, always supporting me, always trying to help me grow if I let them. But if I'm talking crap into them and acting like they're insignificant, then they are, right? So, but one of the other things is I also set myself up for success. So a lot of the stuff I do, a lot of the time when I am speaking with intention, it is usually to help prepare me to be successful. Even when I'm doing certain other tasks, one of the biggest ways to train your mind is like, a lot of people are like, oh, so annoying that I have to go to the gym and like clean my house, you know, and I have to move around. And so I am so upset that I have to do that. And it's like, sometimes the reframe is I get to. So like, I get to clean my house. I get to go to the gym. I get to go do these things. I get to deliver this speech. I get to deliver these messages. And one of the shifts in that is because a lot of the time, like, we forget that people can't do a lot of that stuff, you know? And sometimes we forget that it is actually a blessing. Like, for me to clean back when I was a kid, I hated it. And now I'm like, it is an honor to clean my home because my home is an extension of my mind, for one thing. So if it's chaotic and dirty in here, my mind's not probably doing well. And that, as an ADHD person, has always been the truth for me. I do need an environment where if it's ordered and cleanly, I can at least do everything and feel like I can keep track of my thoughts more easily. And also, I'm somebody that I like to live in a clean home. So I deserve to be somebody that takes care of my environment because it makes me feel good, right? And so a lot of these things is I get to take care of myself because I do this thing, right? I get to go to the gym, and I love that because I love my body, and it deserves that attention. It deserves that movement. It deserves that intention of love into it, which when I don't care and I treat it like crap, it doesn't get any of that. It's being told that it's irrelevant and that it can continue dealing with crap, right? So setting myself up for success has also been about loving myself to the point of being like, I get to do this, and this is a pleasure for me. And even if I don't like doing now, like I hate doing the dishes, future me ain't gonna want to do those dishes then anyway. So you know what? At no point am I going to be like, yay. But at some point, I get to do the dishes and I get to relax after that. And then tomorrow, Jennifer doesn't have to do any of that. And she gets to just do whatever she needs to do that day and focus on it. Because again, we don't know what can happen one day to the next. If I break my arms, tomorrow, Jennifer can't do those dishes either. So setting self up for success is also part of my intention, is me seeing things a mile away and knowing I need to do that now. I don't need to put that on the future me to do that, because I don't know where she's going to be or what she's going to have to deal with. So if I do it now, and I always take care of myself, that is part of taking care of myself, is ensuring that I'm not setting myself up a bigger bomb that I'm not going to want to deal with then than I don't even want to deal with now. So it's important that we remember that when we're speaking, we are creating all the time, whether it's intentional or not. We are always creating. It is always something that we are actively participating in, whether it's in favor of us or not, okay? And it can be a doozy if we're constantly speaking in disempowerment or problematic focus, because that's what's happening now, is so many people are enraged by stuff, but where is the coming forward to change it? Where is the, what do we do now? You know, and that's why I'm trying to do this, is because this is a different approach. Back in the past, I would have just been talking about intention speaking as like yourself and how to build your confidence. And now I'm like, it's important for us to use this as a tool to rebuild our world as well, because it did rebuild mine, right? And that's what we're doing. Each one of our worlds right now is a collective world that sometimes it looks a little crap. When you start realizing you have your own inner world that you can navigate, and it starts controlling the outer world, you start to realize you actually don't have to live in a world at all the way that they've made you. And then you can start living in your own world, but also then you can start helping, because your own world powers this world, right? And right now, if we're so stuck in the intention speaking of it's a terrible world, we're always going to be trapped and enslaved, and most of us feel that way, then that is the majority consensus of what the world we're going to feel and look and be in, because we're all technically connected. So if more of us are thinking that way, we have all co-signed to create that world to remain and stay and operate that way. The more of us that come online to shift that perspective to the new paradigm of a new world or utopia or heaven on earth, the more of us that can start being like, well, this is how we experience it. This is how it would be. This is what it would be like. And more of us come online to create that congruency, that agreeing to be able to come together to form this new ball. Then more of us are going to experience that, rather than just us few that currently have found that out and are living in that way, even despite all this terribleness that's happening. I am still getting to live. That's my privilege of figuring this stuff out, is I'm still living in a different world. Meanwhile, I'm still having to tap back into what is actually happening in the reality of this world, because we are not aware of these other things yet, right? So it's important. It's important for us to see that we are creating, and that the more of us that come online to this, the better we're going to be, because it does give us an opportunity to start living in the world that we actually want to be in, rather than one that we're told to be in. Hello, Esmeralda. Yeah, so some helpful tips that I'll quickly share, because I do know this is getting long again, of course, is your most programmable time, which is why I do these videos. If people haven't noticed, I do them in the early morning. Your most programmable time for affirmations, intentions, and manifesting is just after waking up or right before you go to bed. And it's important to know that, because those are also the times when a lot of times we immediately go to our phone and see that negative stimuli, or immediately have people like still needing stuff from us, or at the end of the day we've done everybody's stuff, and so we're like so annoyed and over it. And so it's important to give yourself, like, any time is good time. I would say, like, I don't know, difficult for me because I do long morning things, but I'd say at least like 15 minutes at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and that's minimum. And that's just a wind down and wind up. So like when I wake up, before my feet touch the ground, I'm like, thank you, day, for me, the air in my lungs, the movement of my body, and for everything going my way. I'm so grateful to live in a world, to seeing all my problems already resolved. And then as I continue moving throughout my day, for me, whatever comes up, because I started that way, I still feel grateful, right? And I also know that even if there's a problem, this is going to be resolved. I don't have to worry too much. At the end of the day, I used to be really hardcore about it, and I used to speak a lot of affirmations. There would be specific ones that I'd wake up and say, and ones that I'd specifically say before I go to bed. There's whole routines that you can do, which is limiting your screen time and everything, and more or less meditating. You can meditate beforehand or meditate after. But why those are good is because it gets you in a place where you're not listening to the outer thoughts, and you're starting to really only listen to your inner self. And at those times, why they're so programmable is because your brain is still in this kind of like sleep oasis mode, that it's kind of in between dreamland and not dreamland. And so you can immediately kind of insert some new ways of being, because your mind is easily being able to enmesh in a new reality. And so because it is still kind of in that underconsciousness layer, and that's why speaking to people sometimes in like metaphors and whatnot is so potent, is because it immediately gets past this logical part, our consciousness, and goes into the subconsciousness. And so when you're being programmed or just waking up from sleep or going to bed, you are really in that nice little state of still dreamlike kind of place where you are in the subconscious. That's why the dreams speak a lot more in symbolism than making actual sense sometimes. And those symbols, right, they're really powerful for us sometimes. So they immediately can change us. A bad enough dream or a good enough dream can immediately change how we feel when we wake up in the morning and needing to go towards something or away from something. So that's the same thing with these. If we are speaking constantly crap to ourselves when we first wake up and when we go to bed, that's mostly what our day is going to be like. That's mostly how we're going to feel. So it's nice to have these other things come up and to actually give yourself time to deal with it, because then even when the terrible world comes a knocking, you have already taken this time to pour into yourself with intention. So everything that you see, you're going to now see it with intention, or using that intention you've already set, so that's an important time. There's also a powerful time to speak affirmations is when you are touching yourself. A little masturbation and orgasm. I'm not gonna lie that orgasms, because they are so powerful energetic wise, they're a big saying yes. They're a big no shame to what I am allowed to have, that I get to have this and I get to feel good about having this. And so orgasms are a big part of that, because you have to please yourself in order to have one, right? And so a lot of the time, that's going to be another time to speak affirmations. And why, when you have intentional sex with people or anything like that, having somebody that speaks good affirmations into you while you both are really connected in that sense, very powerful for manifesting as well. Anyway, important to see that it's not just I am statements. A lot of people get caught up in being like, I am beautiful, I am that. You can look online, and actually I am is the basic one that we can write about for you can't be on my papers. Sorry, girl. I need to be able to read those. Important ones that we need to be able to read about because of the fact that you're all offended now. It's okay, baby. I am is a root one. It's important for us to know about this because we don't only want to create from our root chakra. And we'll go over chakras in another one. But for right now, the point is that I am is only one part of the affirmation you can say. So we have sacral, which is I feel. Because you want to more connect with how you feel as well. Feeling is a really big part of manifesting for me. So I just don't know I am. I feel I am. Right? I feel the sense of shift in the earth, and I love that I'm sensing a shift in the earth kind of thing. That heart is I love as well. So when I be like, I love this, solar plexus, I do. So that's one of the ones that I find most affirmations don't talk about is I can and I do. And those are really important because I do gives you that empowerment to feel like I can do this, you know? So I do operate from a place of love and light only ever. I'm always in my sovereignty, and I know that I do take ownership anytime I need to enforce that for myself, right? Heart is I love, solar plexus is I do, throat is I speak, third eye is I see, and the crown is I understand. So the thing is when we create from all of our chakras, we're being able to not only manifest from like the physical, which is our root, but we're able to use the rest of us because we are a whole dimensional being, right? And so some of the most powerful affirmations that we're going to create are going to be from our higher levels. Because like for me, I see the shift in the world already, and I understand what is happening, and I understand the roles of these change, and I am so grateful to know that they are changing, that we are seeing these shifts, because I see even more possible for the world now because of these shifts, because of this opening. You know, when you're being like, I am beautiful, no, I see my beauty. I see and feel my beauty. I know my beauty. I understand my beauty. I understand it because it's not just about seeing it or feeling it. I understand how beautiful I am inside and out. I understand the way that my beauty comes together to help shift the world, because it's not just my beauty of my face, it's the beauty of my heart and soul. I see it and I understand that fully, right? And how powerful is that, right? Compared to, yeah, I'm pretty. Which I am, but it's not about that, you know. And it doesn't matter if you think I am, by the way. It's just about what I think for myself personally. But so another thing that I've talked about in prior videos is always to like squeeze yourself, a good thing. It helps you know you're safe. So when you're speaking affirmations, it helps you to feel like into the here and now at the same time. Like this is already real and I already feel nice. So like self-hugs are good. But another thing is EFT. You can look it up. I will do not really a video on that specifically, but EFT is a popular kind of method for reprogramming yourself because you tap certain parts, and it helps to reprogram your body, your nervous system, to accumulating these beliefs at the same time, because you're almost opening up these like energetic points, and it helps your body almost like that subconscious level. Rather than just trying to feel it on the logical sense, you're trying to help your body to feel into it and to relax into those beings as well. And so it is just helping to, tap into your nervous system while speaking rapid program into the body and mind. This does work faster than just speaking. This does work faster. One of the reasons is because now you've brought your body into it. So say you're not creating from that root affirmation, I am. You are still creating from that place of like you're using your body in the same sense of, even though I'm being like, I understand, you are still using your body, which helps make it happen in the physical reality that much quicker, because you're utilizing both, not mind and body and spirit, because your crown is spirit. So anyway, the most important thing with affirmations, don't force them. Find ones that actually feel right, or write out your own. In the beginning, it's really easy. You just go online and you can find a bunch of ones that feel Write out the ones that when you read them, they're like, aha, you know, because some of them they'll be like, wow, I really needed to hear that, or that's something that I really like, and they'll stand out to you. Do not force yourself to read things just because you think you need to read them. You need to find ones that specifically call to you, and you'll do that just by reading them. And some of them will seem silly, even though they feel called to them. There's a reason that they feel silly, is because there's a lot of shame behind you actually admitting that affirmation. So they're really good for you to work on. Mirror work is another one I've talked about in the past, which is you speak these affirmations, and you can use it with EFT as well. Again, multiple different layers of how to make this even more pungent. And mirror work is you're speaking to yourself in a mirror, look at yourself in the eye while you're saying this, because then you're again harmonizing with the here and now. And also your eyes are like your soul, right? So again, you're speaking into that higher dimension of yourself. And mirror work is interesting because it is talking about different dimensions. And since we now know that our timing here is not linear, it kind of goes in like circles, and there's all different dimensions happening at once. You might be speaking to yourself in the mirror as we know it now, but those affirmations are actually going back to or forward. They're going in different directions to help you in different times and places in different moments. And so any work you're doing now is actually work that you can be doing in a lot of different dimensions that you might not be aware of. But that's the that's the power of mirror work, is because it does have that dimensional capacity in it as well. They do feel funny at first, and sometimes when you're in really high emotions, the best thing you can do with these is deep breathing. And why that is because when you breathe, you are bringing in energy. So when you exhale, you release all that stuff that maybe was like clouding your mind, but you breathe in all of this good stuff that you are. So you'll be like, I now release all of the crap that was holding me back. And as I breathe in, I feel myself recharge with all this beautiful energy that makes me feel confident and grounded and rest assured, so that I can take the rest of my day and know that I can move through it in a new way that feels better for me. And now so it is. You don't always have to say and a close at the end of them, but I just do because I just don't really like to leave them open. Anyways, so if you were going to work on this, the best thing you can do, first step, awareness of language, introduce positive affirmations. So awareness of language, see where you're saying bad stuff. Start introducing positive affirmations, especially in those areas that you're saying the terrible stuff, right? Those are your easy access buttons. Those are your things that you have a hurt in, and so it's easy to like poke the bear at. So yeah, go in there and be like, no, I'm going to remove that button, and I'm going to start building up in these ways. Then reframe your negative language. So this is where you're going to try to stop those more. So when those thoughts come up, you're going to be like, hey, wait, actually, that's not true. This is now. Because once you have an awareness of it and you create positive affirmations, you now can combine those. Oh, I see it. I see the pattern. I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to put the new thought in there. Okay? And the more you practice reframing, the better you'll get at it. The more you won't have to do it. In the beginning, you're going to catch yourself the most, because that's the most when you're going to be running rampant with whatever you want to say, right? But as you train your mouth and your mind, the more you're going to realize you're not going to speak about yourself like that at all anymore. It's not even going to be, and you're going to really notice it when other people do, because you're going to be like, oh, look at the way you're just spewing crap all over yourself, like, ew. Stop that. That's not who you are. That's not what you're like. Whenever I have friends or family or somebody talk like, I'm like, don't talk about my friend like that. That's actually not true. I know that maybe you're having a tough moment right now, but you're not stupid. You're actually very smart. I know you can handle this, right? And that's the thing is, we let other people, and if we co-sign it, being like, yeah, you're dumb. Our brain actually doesn't know the difference between jokes and when we're talking to other people. So when we go along and co-sign somebody else talking like that, we also accept the crap. So don't accept others' crap. Don't accept your own crap. It's time to start being like, we don't have to keep putting this crap out here. We can actually, use it to fertilize and make gardens now instead. But anyways, and then practice your future focused speaking. So now, instead of just correcting what's in the now, we're actually going to start setting the tone of what was going to come in, right? And then monitor your self-talk in challenging moments. That's always going to be one. And when I might catch myself slip in the most is in a highly highly emotional state. And usually it's because I'm so built on reacting what's happening at that time that I'm not focused about what's coming out my mouth. So it's very important to pause and redirect. And then sometimes, even if you aren't already it, you're like, I am becoming more patient in dealing with these kinds of situations. I'm so grateful that I'm even taking a step forward towards that now, right? And so there is a reflect and reinforce that you could do. And sometimes it's really powerful for you to journal about this stuff, or to have conversations to see where things are coming up for you, but also to see your progress in the way that you slowly start treating and handling, and life starts being different for you. Some of the most amazing moments, the only reason I remember them is because I spent a lot of time writing everything down, all the magical stuff that was happening, all the different ways that I started feeling and interacting with life after I started implementing stuff. You don't really notice the shifts if you're not really paying attention and taking that time to actually reflect. You actually can then give yourself almost like your own kudos to see it is working. It is helping. I do feel this way now. It also can illuminate different areas where you're like, I need to work on that spot because clearly I feel some kind of way because this is how I'm talking about it, right? So, and then also you can strengthen your affirmations. So with time, you're gonna change what you need to say because of the fact that now you have a different belief, right? So you can change the verbiage in it. You can strengthen them instead of just being beautiful. Be like, I am amazingly gorgeous in every way possible. It oozes out of my pores and I'm a goddess now. Like it can get stronger based off of how much awareness you actually start having for yourself. Because in the beginning, you're going to maybe not have that much. But now, at my stage, like I do know we have the God gene inside of us. So when I call myself a goddess, it's not because I'm full of myself and being ignorant. It's because I'm aware that I do have that essence. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's why I find all women, all other people, beautiful as well, because they have that in them too. So I'm not being like better than anybody. And I'm not saying a goddess is a certain thing. It is about being you and unique and honest and calling things out when you don't like them, but also giving love into them when you know that they deserve them. So honestly, I think it's important for everybody to really be paying attention to what comes out of your mouth. That's really the biggest thing. As somebody who speaks a lot, as you can tell, for me, I really know that it's hard sometimes to track everything, especially when you're not really used to thinking about it. But I'm telling you, think about it. When my world shifted for me the most was when I got this, when I started practicing this the most. And the reason why is because I started directing my own life then. I started really realizing the power of my words then. I started realizing the power of my energy then and my thoughts. Even my emotions, using those to help me and to guide me forward. All of it was really big. And so they do shape your reality. And it is important for you to start owning that power that you have. And to think of affirmations not as just as some cheesy thing, but they're actually a tool for reprogramming. They're a way that we can change this world. They're a way that we can all speak life into a new existence here. And that starts with the existence of ourself and our life itself. So, and then self-talk awareness is essential. You want to know that you are talking good and power into yourself at all times, even when things aren't going right. It is not because you purposely chose to be terrible to yourself, okay? It is not because you chose to be in this world, okay? And you're doing the best you can at handling that. And now it's time to remove the shame of why they made you feel that way, because now you actually understand why we're doing that, right? And intentional language creates focus. So the more that you speak with intention, the more that you're going to have that clarity and direction of where you're going. And so it also to create the reality of your desires. So if you already know the direction you're going, you're not really going to give and put energy into all these areas that's not where you're going, right? Like for us, if I were to look at it, there's no point for us to be putting money into war. I believe in a utopia. There should be no reason for us to be going to war. So all that stuff for all that money, all that effort, all that stuff, that's immediately something I wouldn't be putting energy and effort into or money into, because to me, that's the opposite of what we need to build here. Anyway, but future focused speaking, again, keeps you moving forward because it's the same way. It helps influence where that future is going for you. So it's important to just speak with truth and clarity for yourself. And sometimes, yeah, that's maybe not going to be the most beneficial or polite way to say stuff, but it is going to help you in the long run, because you still have to call yourself out on crap. You know, oh, I did not like how I did that there. But it's not because I'm terrible. It's because that's what I learned and how to do that. And I'm going to learn how to do better now because I want to be a better person. And a better person to me is just somebody that doesn't inflict that harm on somebody or that harm onto myself because I made a mistake, you know? But there are things that go along with this, like the law of attraction and stuff like that. But I do like to tell people that they should call their power back to them. That is another affirmation that I usually speak daily. And it's mainly just because we do not want to be giving our power out, and we do everywhere we go, so it's not something we can prevent. But it is something that we can work on just calling back, because some people have never done that, right? And so I specifically like to do that when I've had hard days or gone through something super emotional. When it comes to that, it's just a quick thing. You can look it up online. There's a bunch of different ways people do it, but mine is with love to all and harm to none, and then I say my name. I, Jennifer Collington, now call back all my power and energy from every person, place, or thing in this lifetime, universe, galaxy, or any other. I call back all of my power and energy now, clean, recalibrated, only belonging to me, Simona B. And I do that usually 3 times or however many times I feel until I feel like I get this kind of like whoosh. And then that whoosh usually is that energy returning. And sometimes I keep repeating it because sometimes you'll mess up on the verbiage, and to me it feels like there's a reason. There's something that doesn't want you to call it back. So sometimes even if I've done it a few times, but I messed up a few times, it's not that I'm like, oh, you messed up, you have to do that. I'm like, I messed up, therefore it feels like there's something really actively around me right now, and I need to call it back even more. I just want to clarify it. You know, I don't want to give it power, and sometimes it's just because I want to. It's just about that. So there's another quote I have here that I really like, but there is this, so the triple A's for advancement are important. It's to acknowledge, apply, and advance. So one of the reasons about recognizing and admitting some of these things is so that you can acknowledge. It's not so you can beat yourself up about, so you can acknowledge where you're at and then where you want to go. You want to apply this stuff because then you can advance. All right. So we are acknowledging who we are in the first video. That's why you want to get to know who you are and what's going on for you, because then we can start to apply these new intentions in the way that we actually need for you, and then we can all advance, because technically this is all steps we all need to do. We all have to acknowledge where we've all been part of creating this, whether we've actively taken a part in it or not, based off of how we've allowed ourselves to play into the roles for ourselves or not. We all need to apply these new coaching techniques in a way, because this is how we get ourselves to the next step in evolution, is by using this stuff and advancing forward with it, right? So let what you want to be your reality become so heavy with potential it cannot do anything but become rooted into reality. And all we don't want to become so light and be raised up to the sky, to be carried away from our minds, hearts, and souls, choosing to let it go, so it has nothing to do but to float away and become nothing at all. We want to focus so heavily on what we want that it becomes so saturated in that truth that it falls down to our plane of existence. And all that we don't, we're just going to let it go off to the sky, because technically it doesn't need to exist. But the more we put power into it, the more it exists. So one of the things we need to do is speak life into where we're going now and what we're going to do now, and put the intention into that. Because by proxy of doing that, we remove all of the energy that they're feeding off of right now, which is the most important step. We do not want to give them power anymore. We do not want to let them feed off of us anymore. We don't want to let them feed off this fake world that they've created instead of the reality of truth that we can exist in heaven. We don't want to focus on that anymore. This is now our focus, the intention of what we're creating, but we acknowledge what we are stopping creation of. That way we can apply what we are now needing to change, and that way we can advance forward, all right? So I know it's been another long video, but this is, again, probably one of my more important ones, because out of all the steps in my healing, this is still the one that matters the most. This is still the one that if you're down upon yourself a few days or have like a really tough run-in with life, it is very, very easy to be hard and cruel on yourself. And it is very easy to think that all these things you're not manifesting are not coming true because you're so focused on what isn't here. The point is to trust yourself enough to know that even if it isn't here, it's coming. You know, even if it isn't here, you're making it happen. Even if it's not right now, you're building it up. And even if you don't know, you're going to figure it out. You have this. We all do. I believe in humanity so much. And I feel so sad that majority of our life has not been actually speaking truth of what we're actually capable of into each other and into ourselves. And so the best gift you're ever going to give to anybody, or even to the future of an advanced heaven on earth world, is for you to start speaking kindly about yourself. Because I do not expect perfection from a world that was teaching us to be terrible human beings, okay? I expect better treatment and responding and healing now that we know that the world was pitted to make us like that on purpose. Meanwhile, despite all of their tactics, all of their efforts, all of their control in every way possible, we have all still resisted and found love. And that's what you need to remember, is that even despite everything that they've tried, how well you still have done despite them. That no matter what they've done, they still haven't been able to wipe us out, and that we've still been trying to ascend regardless. But now it's time to fully remove that cloak of their illusions, though, and realize actually who you are and believe in yourself so truly, because honestly, the only reason they had to do all that stuff is because they know who you are and who I am and what we're capable of. And that's why they had to resort to such extreme measures to hide their atrocities and to keep the world in such a state so that they can keep that spinning that way. But guess what? It doesn't work anymore. Not in my reality. My reality is built on love and truth. So I'm sorry. That can't exist here anymore. But thank goodness that it can't. And I understand why it can't. And I see the way that the world is shifting now to show us that it can't. And we are all seeing now how we see ourselves truly in humanity and what that looks like moving forward. And it's amazing to know that we understand the truth of what actually is required now versus the lie of having to stay in what never worked anyways. So thank you all for staying. If you stayed, I appreciate you. Know that it is not easy to do this stuff. But even if you start doing it before you believe, you will become quite a believer quite quickly. It is something that is pretty amazing how quick it works. And especially now, because of the fact that so many more of us are coming online, the more energy you put into just a few affirmations and blocking the negative ways that you speak even just a little bit, they cause such massive ripple effects into the world around you. And by that I mean one drop of water creates this huge ripple. So just don't think that just because you're only speaking a silly affirmation to yourself, or not reacting harshly in the same way, or trying to look into the future, that you're not doing that much. Okay, you're doing enough. And we just need people and everybody to be doing that now. So thank you for doing your part. Thank you for even trying to look into how to rebuild yourself in a way that is actually holy and truly you, that is of true God, or of true higher consciousness, or true spirituality, versus whatever compartmentalized version they've ever tried to teach us. And I hope that you know that we are all in this together, and I do believe I see a path forward for us all. So don't think that even if things get worse, that it is not getting better. Things often, with those tower moments, look way worse. But the truth of the matter is, even in destruction, it is better because it is true, versus living with a false tower that's going to fall out from under us at any time. We see the truth, and now we get to rebuild the truth in our eyes, in our image, in our awareness, okay? I believe in you the way that I believe in myself, and I believe in myself so much, okay? I believe in this earth so much, and it's time for us to start living on it like we were always meant to. So I welcome you to this amazing new journey that we're all on. And part of that is just truly speaking to yourself with empowerment and speaking to this world with empowerment, because it is a place that is supposed to be heaven on earth, and we are allowed to live in it because we are worthy just as we are. You do not need to be perfect to live in this world, but this world does want you to know you are perfect enough to be in it, okay? So thank you all. Much love until our next time, but take care of yourself, and try to limit the power you're giving into these other energies and images, because now it's time to start painting a new one. And we do that the more we start looking towards that direction, okay? Take care. Bye.